Deshaun Watson, J.K. Dobbins, Evan Neal, Zach Allen, and Jeff Okudah. These are 5 players I selected to talk about here today because these 5 players need to perform to the level of expectations, if not beyond. Before we get into these players, I just want to say something real quick. Some of my recent videos have been kind of popping off recently, and I have nothing to say but thank you all for watching. There's going to be more NFL content to come, especially in the dog days of summer. If you're on this channel, you have the same itch for the NFL that I do, so let's just get right into it. Enough of this BS. Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He needs to step it up. If you saw those last 6 games that he was eligible to participate in post-suspension last season, it was pretty brutal. But to be fair to him, and believe me, if you don't want to be fair to him, that's fine, I completely get it. But for the sake of the Cleveland Browns and the video, Deshaun Watson was suspended from all football activities for the first 9 or 10 weeks roughly because it was an 11-game suspension. He returned in week 13, and he had about 2 weeks to get his stuff together before we actually played. So while Watson was away, he wasn't able to practice, wasn't able to build chemistry with his teammates, wasn't able to learn the playbook, etc. He just went into it blind, went into it probably stiff as hell from all that time away from football-related activities. And the worst part about it for Cleveland's sake is that he has a fat contract that there are pretty much no outs to. It's pretty much all guaranteed money that the Cleveland Browns somehow got fleeced into signing. Big ups to Deshaun Watson's agent, and he needs to start playing like he's a top 5 quarterback again because he was electric when he was in Houston, and he was also a lot more likable back then. He needs to return to that form or the Cleveland Browns will be screwed. J.K. Dobbins is the next player on this list who must perform this upcoming season in the NFL. And spoiler alert, he will. Dobbins is poised to be the RB1 in the Baltimore Ravens backfield, the team that wins 70% of their games when Lamar Jackson is healthy. Lamar Jackson got the bag this offseason like he wanted. This will be Dobbins' 4th year in the NFL, but only his 3rd year playing, so there's a lot of miles left on those legs, and he's now 2 years removed, over 2 years removed by the time week 1 rolls around, from his torn ACL, MCL, meniscus injuries, etc. that plagued him and made him sit out the 2021 campaign. And lastly, Dobbins is in his contract year. He wasn't a first-round pick, so in his 4th year, it'll be the final year of his rookie deal in the NFL. He's going to want to put up big numbers to try to get as much money as he can in the running back market next season, which has been looking pretty bleak, as you can tell from this past offseason. Everything is panning out perfectly for J.K. Dobbins to perform next season. And I'm sure the Ravens themselves would like that as well, because he's a lot better than the other running backs on the roster. Evan Neal is the most important player in this video to their respective team outside of Deshaun Watson, and that's only due to the quarterback positional value just being the highest of all positions in the NFL. But Evan Neal needs to perform this upcoming season because he kind of sucked last year. The former number 7 overall pick in last year's draft just had a rough rookie outing. He was pretty decent in the run game, but it was just really bad in pass protection. And those experts who know a lot more about the offensive line than you and I, for example, pretty much would all say the same thing about Evan Neal. He's an athletic freak and definitely a good prospect coming out of college, but he just didn't quite have the technique or wasn't able to hold his balance and would just kind of get abused in the pass protection game last season. But he's working on that. In this offseason, Evan Neal has been training with former 4-time All-Pro offensive tackle Willie Anderson, as well as working on his physique. Look how freaking shredded he looks, man. And he's also working on his stance too in this training time in the offseason. If you're a Giants fan, you can only hope that Evan Neal steps up for the New York Giants this upcoming season because there's a lot of moving parts around him that would love stability on the offensive line for once. Here we have Jeff Okudah, who was traded to the Atlanta Falcons earlier in this offseason for a 5th-round pick. The former number 3 overall pick just didn't really live up to that true CB1 role in Detroit, largely due to injuries, which definitely plagued his career for the most part. He was only active for 20 of 50 total games he could have potentially played in his young career so far. Jeff Okudah strikes me as kind of that versatile, toolbox almost defensive player, and less so a true CB1. Detroit would play him all over the field, and he likes to get really physical and scrappy around the line of scrimmage. Jeff Okudah's 5th-year option was initially declined by Detroit, and then he was moved to Atlanta. Therefore, he's only making just south of $3.7 million this year, which is a good value for Atlanta as a team, but maybe not as much the former number 3 overall pick would like to be making. But now, in his contract year, he's surrounded by loads of talent on the defensive side of the ball down in Atlanta this year, especially being opposite of A.J. Terrell. Okudah is now surrounded by the most talent he's ever been surrounded by in his young NFL career, and the level of quarterback play he's going against now in the NFC South is also the lowest it will ever be in his career. He'll be facing the likes of Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, and lastly, the rookie, Bryce Young. So with slightly lower expectations for Okudah down in Atlanta, while surrounded by more talent and versing easier competition for his side of the ball, I believe Okudah must perform this year. In order to get that contract I'm sure he's looking forward to, living up to the hype that this Atlanta Falcons defense is getting this offseason, and in order to remain a starting cornerback in the NFL. I'd be lying through my teeth if I said I knew a lot about Zach Allen before working on this video, but when looking at the NFL free agency period this offseason and seeing some of these contracts, he's actually the number 2 overall paid defensive end. Actually number 1 if you go by what's important, the guaranteed money. But after watching some of his tape and highlights, this guy is an absolute monster of an edge rusher. You can line him up outside on the pass rush, you can line him up inside, he can stop the run, he can get to the quarterback. He's even pretty big too, he could tip balls. This guy is just an absolute beast on the defensive line, and Denver really needed this because after Draymond Jones and Bradley Chubb last season departing, Denver could definitely use a guy like Zach Allen to fulfill that need on the defensive line. Zach Allen's been pretty good in his time in Arizona, but his numbers are pretty average. But at the end of the day, he's joining an already elite Denver Broncos defense who expect to compete this year with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson hopefully getting back to form. So he's already joining a strong unit in Denver. He just has to play like he's worth $32 million guaranteed. These are the 5 players I think must perform this upcoming season in the NFL. Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. 97.9% of you guys are not subscribed, so I'd appreciate it if you threw your boy a sub. Thank you so much for watching.